Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar Sitecore Upgrade Best Practices. I'm your moderator Ayush, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Xavier Stallings, VP Technology at edynamic. Uncertainty around the best practices and configuration changes has intimidated many organizations from going for Sitecore upgrades. Modern upgrade approaches, including edynamics automated upgrade tool and Sitecore's migration utilities, have made the process easier. In today's presentation, we'll hear Xavier Stallings, VP edynamic, talk about why you must not delay an upgrade and how you can accomplish upgrades rapidly, efficiently, and cost effectively. Now, over to you, Xavier.
Hey, thank you, I appreciate it. So Ayash has already done a really good job introducing myself, but let me introduce edynamic. Edynamic's been with the Sitecore practice since 2003. We've got done well over 200 solutions under our belt. We also got 3 resident Sitecore MVPs on staff and ongoing training to really culture and grow more on our team. We've differentiated ourselves as an industry leader in accelerating go-to-markets as well as upgrading, and we also have some reusable components ourselves and we're working to mature and help grow clients with some tools like Eloqua, Pardot for CRM, or Marketo, things for email marketing and automation. A bit about myself. So, yep, my name is Xavier. I am a Sitecore enterprise architect. I've been doing tech for about 18 years now. Aided that in the Sitecore realm, and about 10 in the digital space at this point. I've delivered an architect to some highly global and high volume, high visibility sites. Most recently, ExxonMobil, Duke Energy, WellCare, Regal Entertainment, and several others. In 2016, the site that we just most recently architected and solutioned is actually up for Sitecore of the Year award, and they will be receiving one for Best Data-Driven Website. And I also have had the opportunity to work in a variety of industries, from government, retail, industry, energy, manufacturing, financials, and some others. Today, though, the topic is really going to be about upgrading, why we upgrade, when is a good time to upgrade, some of the research and some best practices, and then some of our recommended approach and our overall viewpoint on how you can properly upgrade yourselves from your current environment or your current Sitecore experience to some of the later new and greater toys. So why upgrade? That's really the key here. You know, when and why do we upgrade? There are a few key reasons. One, obviously, our current Sitecore support might be reaching its end of life. Browser compatibilities have become an issue and a real thing when we start dealing with greater experiences and clients or consumers expecting greater and better digital maturity and digital experiences. Digital maturity of customers, they're getting and they expect more. More means better web applications, more and better mobile applications and mobile experiences. Apps themselves have to be better powered and deliver better experiences. Emails, devices, there's just a lot now that in the digital realm we all have to mature and grow, which then means our infrastructure has to also be able to scale and grow with this as well. These keys and change in infrastructure usually also give us an edge and a chance to see when we can actually upgrade our software. The Sitecore and the support we talked about, you'll see my little guy with the falling off the cliff, really resonates, and that end of support means that any security patches or things like that really become a pain, and we have to start to engage Sitecore to initiate cost measures in order to get those resolved and remediated. So staying in front of it is really the key. You'll see later on one of our best practices and one of our tips is to frequently, upgrade your system. Don't be afraid to do it. A lot of customers really are concerned and afraid to upgrade or update their systems, but you've got to be more comfortable, and some of the tools we'll talk about today will show how you can be more successful and help and less apprehensive about this. Browser support, like we said, you see is changing. The typical old browsers that cannot support some of the new and flashier utilizations on the web are now becoming dinosaurs and outdated. So now the newer browsers are really what are driving the experience on the web these days. Servers themselves, as we talked about, are having to mature, and not just only this kind of servers we use, but where the server is placed at, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. SQL Server typically has to go through its maturity and its upgrade. As we expect more of SQL and it to do more, we need a better version of SQL available for us. So with all that, there's also just the cool factor and the fun things of why we want to upgrade. Experience Analytics is a great driving factor to be able to run and trace back analytics. Experience Profile as well. You'll see I've got a slide after this that really shows you how you can drill into your segmentation, really pull that information out and then drive and deliver very customized and personalized experiences based on that segmentation. Things like the Sitecore Accelerator do a great job of accelerating your delivery by if there is HTML or a website that you want to redesign, giving you the tools out of the box to be able to do that redesign. Things like the Sitecore Item Web API help with integration and kind of the decoupling and things that really scare the architects themselves and why they don't want to do the upgrade, and these kind of tools help to exercise and improve that and make it a better experience for the developers as well. So I touched on this briefly, but one of the cool things and a big draw factor is like the experience profile. Experience profile it's all that it's cracked up to be and all it's said to be. The data that is tracked per session and as it's tracked over the history of the user can be used to then really change the experience that you give a user. The components can be swapped out, personalized for a person. If they filled out forms, all these kind of things can be tracked, and you can really experience and drive actions at a very granular level or at a high level as you determine. So changing in infrastructure is happening in lots of places, and traditionally changing infrastructure usually means that you're digitally maturing, as well as that it's an opportunity for your applications to also be upgraded. So the approach and how to really do this is baked much in the planning. The planning is 90 or 80% of how to get this correctly, how to get this done correctly. The execution is all based on your planning. In the planning, you need to take into consideration the Sitecore installations that you'll need to get done. The development server environment, any QA environment or stagings, as well as like your production and your CD environments. While that's going on, typically there may be an impact to your licensing, not prod and or non-prod licenses, but of course you can always speak with Sitecore and look into getting some temporary upgrade licenses throughout your process. From the lessons learned, you'll see one of the big pains in the planning that you want to have is really around your Sitecore modules. Any of the marketplace modules, third-party components, those are going to be typically where the places that you'll find that as you upgrade, you'll either need to upgrade the module or you'll need to just make application and code changes to remediate some of the changes that may have impacted in the kernel. Going forward, Sitecore is definitely encouraging the change of this with some of their patterns that they're driving, like Helix, and how to do some of the implementation for the architecture that would certainly simplify this. But at the moment, typically this is the nightmare of any architect before they get in and want to do upgrades. And this is where I'd say most of our apprehension comes from. So proper planning here can help really remediate the issues later on. Some of that proper planning is done with, proper solution documentation and solution configurations. Some of the documentation and some of the process that we do result in, removing, changing the configurations or backing them out. So in order to properly make sure that you're able to re-enable your system to its full standards again, you've got to properly document your system and properly document any kind of third-party or external configurations. For the Sitecore configs, it's always the best practice to try and patch those up. Do not use the Sitecore framework files. Those files and those configurations through a step-by-step or an upgrade will typically get altered. So the best way to keep yourself free and clear here is to patch your Sitecore configuration files that you're using. And then just take a baseline metrics. A lot of times this is something that's overlooked, but its importance is still significant. Knowing where you are or how your page is currently performing is the only way you'll really truly be able to determine, especially from a technical output, if you were successful or not, right? So taking proper response time metrics from some of your top pages, taking CPU utilization metrics, memory utilization metrics, and really understanding how the current system is functioning so that you have a baseline to compare to once you're done. And this is also only ratcheted up in the Sitecore 8 environment, where if you're looking to host your own servers, you'll get some additional server roles that we'll talk about a little bit later on here. Finally, in your database upgrading, when you're ready to go live, there's proper planning around content freezes. Your code should get deployed through your installation and as well as your code deployment utility, and having a rollback plan is also something key. So now we'll talk in a little bit of detail of the how. Okay, so how, now that you've kind of committed and we're understanding that the upgrade is going to happen, there are two main upgrade paths, so to speak. There is a basic step-by-step, and then we'll look at a more automated method using some of the tools that we mentioned earlier, like our automated upgrader, as well as like the content migration tool. So in the step-by-step method, this is the traditional Sitecore method. Not a bad method. It's tried and true. Sitecore provides documentation in order to get you to in order to get you to upgrade at a step-by-step method from 6.6 version to 7.5 to 8, and then to 8.2 or whatever your final destination is on 8. But in the step-by-step method, the considerations have to be taken around the database, any existing configuration files, any new Sitecore files, and that's where we started talking about things like patching and things like and the Sitecore DLLs and administration. Any code updates that need to be done to stay up to standard with the new upgrades. So if there are any modules or connectors that are being used, like MaxMind is one that comes to mind, is no longer supported once you go into the new system. We moved over to the App Center and the GeoIP service. So things like that all need to be assessed and properly handled and mitigated in the code layers and development layers. If you're going to be using Experience Platform, considerations around the new server roles. There's now a processing server, session state servers, and that are dedicated or should be, and then we've got Mongo Analytics. So some of the recommendations when trying and when preparing to execute the step-by-step method, back up your databases, back up your files, your indexes, back up everything. There's some tools out there that really make this handy in the lower environments, non-prod, like the Sitecore Instance Manager SIM. And then once you're ready to run your upgrade script, make sure that you're running the upgrade scripts that Sitecore provides you from an out-of-the-box Sitecore instance. This really comes into play in your server farm areas where you may have things like replication set up. Merge replication, not so much it keeps the Sitecore database intact, but if you've configured any kind of custom transactional replication, or if you've made any kind of custom database changes to the membership provider or things like that, you want to make sure that those stay intact by backing those changes up and using a fresh copy in order to update your database during the upgrade, and then just rerun your database scripts to re-update the system back to the way it was or after it's been upgraded. Remember to remove the Sitecore support files. Typically this is something a lot of folks forget, but this only adds the time it takes really to execute this. Sitecore files and configurations should come from the Sitecore installer. This is the key that we talked about earlier. You really want to patch your files and don't use the Sitecore framework files that come from the installer. And the reason being is these files can be overwritten during the installation process. If you've got them patched in, have no worries during the Sitecore runtime. It will patch your files. It'll patch your configurations back into the solution. And don't forget to review the log files during the upgrade and after. You want to, the same thing, very similar to taking a baseline. You want to make sure that the system doesn't introduce any new failure, any new defects. So monitoring your bug files, using things like Sitecore Log Analyzer are very helpful. And finally, the really big one is going to be around make sure you practice. You have to practice in a product-like environment. The reason we say production-like environments, because if you have a scaled infrastructure or a scaled web farm, you want to make sure that other factors around taking servers out of a load balance, placing servers back in a load balance, those can all be accounted for by the development team so that they feel comfortable that if anything should arise, they know how to handle the situation. So those are some of the recommendations you definitely want to follow before executing this process. When you run the actual Sitecore upgrade, you'll see Sitecore does a really good job of giving you thorough step-by-step documentation. Hence the phrase step-by-step. So follow the documentation to the T. As long as you are sticking with the basics and sticking within the assumptions of the Sitecore upgrade, you should have no problems executing. In this upgrade, it will come with database scripts that typically need to be run first. Then from there, you'll have any content or package changes that need to be made to the application, which will come as a download.update, and then that'll just run with the Sitecore admin update wizard. Here we have just a sample snippet. You can see exactly how the Sitecore upgrade really documents the steps, and you can see first step they always say, same here, back up everything, back up your site. And you can't stress enough, not just the site you see, but also your indexes. If you've got Mongo, back up your Mongo data, back up everything. Some of the major configurations, or some of the configurations you definitely want to do, really are around timeouts. During the upgrade, one of the worst things you can find that will impact your system are things around timeouts. Those things can be fixed if you just simply update your your session timeout field. And that should allow you your installation at any amount of time it needs to communicate with any server or a database, it gives it the time it needs during the upgrade. Some of the some of the code changes, ahead of time, and the research team can certainly usually spot these out, but you'll never know. One of those things you'll never know until you really get into the system. But looking in areas where content search API was not implemented, or excuse me, was being implemented, analytics API, that's been changed, and other just Sitecore kernel things that have been changed in implementations. Those are the areas where you'll find that you'll need to make remediations. Code places that are using pipelines, or typically around request pipelines and things like that, you're usually pretty safe. But in some areas, you do need to do some testing while you're making these updates, because there can be impacts to the system. So once you upgrade your environment, you'll definitely want to make sure they're practicing in a final environment. The first upgrades will always be on your dev or your development, or excuse me, your local environments. But once you're ready to do this and go live, it should be done in a production-like environment. So if you have multiple CD servers, we certainly recommend engaging, and sometimes this will require engaging Sitecore for a temporary license, but it is all well worth keeping the site up or not having any issues with the site having to fail over to that DR. Use vanilla instances in your lowered environments, and really that's just for timing. This is the step-by-step process can be kind of time-consuming. So if you have a massive amount of content or things like that, that'll only slow up your process. And finally, in highly available areas, really make sure that the network team is on the same page as you, so that when you're pulling servers in and out of the farm and updating them, any issues can be isolated and really kept away from the rest of the availability group. Finally, there's the new roles and then upgrade that need to be done. This is really super simple if you're talking about cloud, because it's as simple as spinning up your instances and using connection strings. However, if you're actually doing infrastructure as a server or as a service or on-premise, this will mean that you have to have a Mongo instance as well as a processing server. So our approach to doing this really amounts in two ways, excuse me, from one way. What we do is from the local environment, we like to use our auto installer, get familiar and find any defects. We run that in your local environment and upgrade, and then move your upgrade to your more higher environments. Our automated upgrade tool is easy to install for your Sitecore instance. It also comes with Selenium automation scripts for some of the custom areas and custom connectors that we spoke about, where we typically find the biggest pain points. It does support multi-languages, so it will get all your versions for your content, and it is also fully supported for user experience and resolving any kind of issues post upgrade. It's great for handling any kind of older systems, 6.6 all the way up throughout 8.2, and there's very low overhead to really running our upgrade tool. We've actually got some snapshots here where you can see that on the instance that we're upgrading, you simply select the current version and where you're targeting to get it to. The upgrade tool will run through. Any automated tests that are run, any automated tests that are configured will be run subsequently, and the testing results all show it right there in the system. We've actually used the tool recently to upgrade Sitecore 6.6 clients, one of them being Georgia Pacific, and all in all it took 10 days. There's absolutely a period where, like I said, the team wants to get your system and pull it down locally so that any code remediation or any kind of defects can be caught early on or planned for early on. But all in all, the process is a very swift process to get done. In conjunction with our upgrade tool, there's also Sitecore's got their Express migration tool, and it's not an upgrade, but it does handle your content, your Sitecore content, the content tree, and any changes or remediation to its schema types for the field items. Originally, they only had the Sitecore 1.0 version. However, as of December, I believe, of 2015, they came out with the Express Migration for 2.0, which really just expands on the limitation that it now supports Sitecore's 6.6 all the way up to getting you to 8.2. The only hitch here is that you do need to be going to Sitecore 8.2 update 1, but if you're certainly looking to go to 8.2, you definitely want to go to the version update 1.1. So we have some slides here where you can see how the Express tool, Migration Express tool works. In here you'll see your layouts, things like that. You can select which ones, what you want to migrate, and all of the sub-items and ancestors of those items. And then by selecting them, they'll simply migrate them over to your desired system, your designation. So both systems do need to be able to communicate with one another, the source as well as the target. I've got some contact information here if you need to reach us or reach myself. And I've also cited a very good Sitecore document about why we upgrade. Some quick tips. One of some of these we've probably already touched on or talked about or discussed. Regularly upgrade your Sitecore. There's lots of security patches, any kind of holes or any kind of bug fixes and defects. You definitely want to keep up with that, and that's something that the Sitecore puts out regularly in their knowledge bases. Plan and practice. That is the biggest thing here. Going back to the slide around the connectors and the external sources, that's the external modules. Those are going to be your biggest pain points. So planning and then practicing. Practicing not only just in your lowered environments, but practicing in something similar to the actual environment that you'll be producing to. And then engage the partner for help. So engaging Sitecore or a Sitecore partner for help is always a good idea. It can help with supporting any issues or helping you to catch any potential pitfalls, and also giving you some lessons learned. Electing for code freezes. Once you're ready to go to production, hey, absolutely, we'll need a code freeze. And having that process and having that ready and documented with the marketers is something that's also critical. And engage Sitecore support if you run into any issues. With them being, especially if they're production issues, make sure Sitecore is ready to escalate those and get them turned around as quickly as possible. But the developers definitely need to engage Sitecore support quickly and early if there's any issues. And don't use, for goodness sakes, when you're running the Sitecore scripts, the Sitecore updates in the installation wizard, do not run them in IE. IE typically can give some false positives and results, so not picking Chrome is typically the best way to go there. And one of the ones I talked on is increase your timeouts. So in your web.config, you'll have session timeouts, you'll have SQL timeouts. You should likely have index timeouts as well, but increasing all those timeouts just to make sure that throughout the period while you're running an upgrade that there are no issues connected to the system. And I've actually gone and documented some of those, which each one of them kind of ran off to you in the list here. But yep, these are the timeouts that we're talking about. And one additional was the cookie as well. All right, with that, Ish, good to go, man.
Thank you so much for the insights, Xavier. We are now accepting questions. So if anybody in the audience has any questions, please feel free to ask them. Uh, well, looks like that we are good with the questions for now. But and thank you all for joining us today. We look forward with connecting with you again. The recording for today's webinar will be available on our website within the next 3 business days. We will also be sharing the webcast URL with all the attendees via email. Please feel free to reach out to us at contact@edynamic.net with any questions that you may have after this webinar. Thank you once again, everyone, for your time. And thank you, Xavier, for joining us for this webinar.
Thank you.